you ready to embark on a transformative journey? Hi, I am Sharon Kumara, host of Awakened Soul. By tuning into Awakened Soul Radio, you will be inspired to shed the illusions that bind you, connect more deeply with your inner wisdom, and step into a liberating life of freedom, clarity, and purpose. Each episode, I share stories and lessons learned that help cultivate greater compassion, patience, and understanding, qualities to embody in everyday life. I invite you to join in as we expand our awareness, exploring diverse topics, and gain access to practical tools, guided exercises, and expert advice to help overcome fears and break the chains that bind us. Join us on Awakened Soul. Your journey to freedom and true self begins here. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Awakened Soul. I am your host, Sharon Sananda Kumara, and another exciting show. And I'm so happy that Wendy Rose Williams is with me again. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, Sharon. Thank you so much for having me as your guest.
Yes. Today we're going to talk about Mary Magdalene, one of my very favorite people to talk about. So Wendy and I have a common connection, I think, with Mary Magdalene. Wendy and I have known each other for a while now, and we've talked on these podcasts for a while. And we haven't talked a lot about Mary Magdalene, but we have talked a little bit about the fact that we do have some kind of common connection with her. And I can't wait to dive in further into that and and just talk about who is Mary Magdalene, who was Mary Magdalene, who is she in today's world, and who was she to Christ, to Yeshua, Jesus, and how did she affect his followers, and all of that good stuff, because I believe that her story has not been highlighted the way it should have been. That's my take on it. And so, yeah, that's what I want to talk about today. And I think it's really important to bring that story of Mary Magdalene. There's a lot of people talking about it now too, and bringing the divine feminine. So thank you, Wendy, for being here.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the fact that the Pope created Mary Magdalene Day and just came out with that big public statement of July 22nd to be her feast day, to be recognized as her birthday, and that she was, in his words, the 13th apostle. I think that's a really big deal in setting the record straight, Sharon, because yes, I think it's just very misunderstood as to who she was. One of the things that I think led to some of the confusion was it's such a unique story. It's such a bold story. And I think people weren't ready for it for a long time and are ready for it now. So I personally do not believe that I was raised as a Christian and was raised as a Protestant, and the teachings at that time from when I was born were that she was a repentant whore. And I simply don't, it doesn't resonate for me. I just don't believe that's who she was. Mary was one of the most common names in the times. And I think that causes a lot of the confusion because there were so many Marys. So I think that's part of why those geographic names came in, as well as, son of, but for the women, it was, even more complex and could be confusing. So I'll just start from the beginning. She began really coming to me in 2014. It was the summer of 2014. And I had been having extreme pain that had been building, physical pain, as well as emotional pain, heartbreak. And it had just been building and building and building through the years 2011, 2012, 2013, and leading up to an incredible series of quantum healing hypnotherapy sessions that I had, where she came through and spoke so clearly, just so matter of fact, so down to earth. And basically, what she did was she told me the story of her life. And she started with when she was a little girl. So, would that be a good place for me to start?
Sure. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, perfect, perfect. And she told me that she had been raised essentially by her much older brother and sister, by Lazarus and by Marta, because their parents, unfortunately, had passed on when she was very young. She was only 5 or 6 years old. So that created quite a void. And fortunately, as I said, the sister and brother were much older, and the parents had been um, quite wealthy. So there were just, there was a lovely home and funds and, everything to just take care of those children. So at least they had that going for them. And I kind of see there being like a 10 to 15-year gap between her and her sister and brother. So they stepped into that parent role, as did Mother Mary. And Mother Mary, Yeshua's mother, so Magdalene knew Yeshua as a neighbor, as a friend, as an older boy in the neighborhood when she was growing up. And she then went through a very early Kundalini awakening, Kundalini rising. And I see Kundalini as being our full life force energy, and it goes up through all the chakras. So she had that experience when she was 9, she explained to me. And she was really a highly evolved being spiritually, as a soul, as was Yeshua, certainly, as was Mother Mary, because she had to be to have birthed, such a special son. So Mary Magdalene, and Yeshua had made plans that they were going to marry when she was a very young girl. And she was taken to, with her agreement, and everyone felt it was just the best place for her to be, was to go to the temple of Isis, because here she was, no parents, very evolved spiritual being, and she needed to have a beautiful education in many ways. So she went to the temple of Isis at Philae, which Mother Mary had a connection with and was one of the sponsors of. So she was taken there and passed all the initiation rites and conversations that she needed to have when she was about 9, 10, 11 years old. So she went there unusually young, because that was more of a decision typically for, like late teens, early 20s. Certainly women could go there at different periods in life, but she went there quite young. And just began studying. So she was taught multiple languages. She was taught world history. She was taught world geography, and she was taught things like how to work with Mother Earth herself, how to work with the weather. I mean, she was taught all kinds of things. She was taught meditation, rituals, just so many things. And as she mastered different things at the Temple of Isis, like the other women that were there, because it was only women that were at the Temple of Isis at Philae in Egypt, she would earn different beautiful jewelry. There were 3 different pieces of jewelry that were earned, could be earned. So she earned all of those in the 10 or so years that she was there. One was a bracelet that was worn high on the arm, up above the elbow. One was a necklace, and one was a headband. And they were all earned in different ways, and could take years. And some people, simply didn't earn all 3 of them. So she's in her late teens, and it was her turn to gather water from the well, which of course was a daily task at that time. We don't have our beautiful indoor plumbing like nowadays. And she was outside gathering water at the well outside the Temple of Isis. And she had the most incredible reunion with Yeshua, because he studied many different places as he was getting ready for his important role in the world. And he had been at one of the nearby men's temples, so a temple of Horus at the time. And he was walking down the street and saw Mary Magdalene, and they had this incredible, incredible reunion. And it had been years since they had seen each other, but they still both felt the same way. And they wanted to be together in life. They wanted to marry. And I just can't imagine how wonderful that reunion must have been, not knowing when it was going to come, not having our modern day communication, etc. So they both needed to wrap up and finish what they were doing. Mary Magdalene was going to need to explain to the others at the Temple of Isis and let them know that she would be leaving, because certainly many women did stay there for a lifetime, but it wasn't like a convent or a monastery where you were required to stay there. If there was something else, a bigger destiny that came up, then certainly you were able to leave. So she gave her notice, so to speak, and she also had to work her way back from Egypt and get back home. So again, we don't have our modern transportation. So what would take us, a plane flight of a couple hours could be months back then. And Yeshua also needed to complete what he was doing with training in Egypt. So when she got back home, she was expecting to start that they would have to go through the appropriate protocol with the Jewish priests, with her brother being consulted and agreeing, because she did not have a father, but agreeing that she could marry Yeshua, and for the Jewish priests who were in power to also bless and agree. So Magdalene got one of the most difficult shocks of her life, because instead of the priests agreeing, they chose to instead overrule her wishes, Yeshua's wishes, her brother's wishes, and there just was nothing Lazarus could do about it. And they said that she was to be married to John the Baptist, who she certainly did not want to marry and did not want to marry her. So that was just a very difficult experience for both of them to go through that. But that's what the priests wanted to do. John the Baptist was also an incredible prophet for God. And the priests just felt that he was more, trying to look for the right word,
More of a Messiah?
more able to manage him, more manageable, I think is the right word. They were concerned that Yeshua was becoming too popular too quickly and was more of a runaway train that they didn't really know what to do with. So Magdalene was forced into the marriage with John. It was incredibly difficult, unpleasant. It was a marriage that was chosen to be a big spectacle. There were literally thousands of people there. And, in that time and age, that was a big deal. So she then, instead of John setting her up in their own household, he leaves her in her family home. He leaves her in place with her brother and sister as her chaperone, so to speak, and he visits as little as possible. So again, just like a really, really difficult situation. And imagine that from all of their perspectives, because John doesn't want to marry her, she doesn't want to marry him, and John and Jesus are cousins. And to know that you're marrying someone who is in love with your cousin, to know that you're marrying someone that's in love with anyone else must have been very painful, humiliating, not easy. So that was the situation. And Magdalene did conceive a child, and then things went very, very wrong for John the Baptist. And as we know, he was beheaded. He was taken, he was imprisoned, and he was beheaded. And so she's then a young widow, and she gives birth to their son, who she names John after his father, after John the Baptist has been killed. So I'll just stop at that point. Do you have questions? Does this fit with your knowledge? Is any of this new to you? Were you already familiar with this?
Uh, a lot of it is new. Some of it isn't. I do remember that because just for the audience, Wendy and I have memories through Mary Magdalene's eyes, and I'm assuming that's what you're sharing is what Mary Magdalene was showing you through your
Yes,
memories, correct? Okay.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. She started coming to me via meditation, via dreams, etc., and
Mhm.
then had the quantum healing hypnotherapy sessions. I actually had two in a day, and just profound amount of information came through as she showed me and told me. And I mean, it was everything. It's the feelings, it's the emotions. It's not
Right.
like dry narration. And I went through an entire box of Kleenex that day.
It's visceral. Yes, it's visceral. And there's a lot of women on the planet and that are that are able to tap in, or she's coming to, and that are tapping into that energy, in that energy of Mary Magdalene, and
Yes, because
connecting to that soul stream, that have memories, and it can drive you crazy if you don't know what's going on. And so
it's exactly, it's so well put. Exactly.
yeah.
Um,
And so my memories are of her, that she did go to the mystery schools. She did attend mystery schools as a young girl, and that her and Yeshua both attended the mystery schools. I also got that they attended the school of the Essenes, or the Essenes as well. Yeah, and studied there. Uh,
yes.
okay, and they did grow up together. I also got that. No, I didn't get about John the Baptist, but there's a lot of information I didn't get. It was more about, what I got was more when during the time when, with the apostles and those relationships. Uh,
Mhm. Absolutely. And
that's a lot of the information I got. Mhm.
I think I think whatever is most important for each of us is what comes
Right,
through. And I
right.
also believe that it's a timeline that splits, so to speak, and different people are going to have different memories.
Yes,
And
totally.
it does not make anyone else incorrect. I think just different memories come through for different people.
Right. I did get, and I'm glad that you said about the prostitute thing.
Mhm.
Is that I always felt that that was not true, even when I was going to Bible study and things like that. It just didn't sit right with me.
Mhm.
And um, also, I I remember having a argument with one of my higher playing teachers. I came back the next morning from my one of my astral travels, and I was in a higher playing classroom, and he was saying that she was a prostitute or whore, and I'm like, no, that's not true. We were arguing about it, and I'm thinking, okay, this is strange. Why is this happening in the higher planes? And
Right.
yeah, um, I realized at the time that that was something that was very embedded in the consciousness of the Christian um, collective.
Christian and Catholic both, yes.
Yeah, totally. And there's a reason for that, of course, we know that. And I find it interesting what you were sharing, is that the similarities with the woman at the well, Lazarus with had a sister in the Bible, a sister named Mary, and another sister who was best friends with Lazarus was best friends with Yeshua, and he's the one that Yeshua raised from the dead. And there's a lot of similarities there that, so, that's kind of strange
Exactly.
about how things may
Exactly.
have been changed. Yeah.
Right, right. So I just feel that one of the best ways you can attack a woman is to attack her integrity.
Right.
And what more hurtful way to do it? I mean, I really see it was the suppression of the divine feminine. Uh,
Totally.
so, um, so yes, yeah. So I so appreciate your insight, Sharon. So Magdalene gives birth to her first son, and to John, and then a year later, because of waiting an appropriate time period, a second request is made at that time, of the Jewish priests. Could Magdalene and Yeshua marry? And they did. And Yeshua was a Jewish priest. And that was the tradition, was Jewish priests were married in that timeline. So there's nothing unusual or shocking about that. But I believe the fact that he was married and had children was carefully hidden the best it could be. Certainly the inner circle knew that, but they did not want that publicly known because they knew they lived in very dangerous times, and they knew he had a very big role to play and that it might go sideways. So you didn't want to have your wife and children be targets. So, but that is part of why she traveled with them. I mean, it made perfect sense. She was his wife. I actually see her as if you want to be technical about it, as the first apostle versus the 13th apostle.
He was the first, I believe even the Bible maybe says that and if you've seen The Chosen, he chose her first.
Right, right.
He went to her first.
So,
The first show is him going to Mary Magdalene, choosing
right,
Magdalene, yeah.
right. And she, as I said, had family money. So that's where the money that was coming from, that was helping fund his ministry. Yes, other people helped too. But that's where the bulk of it was coming from. And for people who are like, well, how did this woman have money? I mean, come on, this is not a mystery. It's called family money. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. So they spent years together traveling. It was a traveling ministry, as we know.
Mhm.
And she would go with him at times, and other times she would stay home. So they would make the decision based on how peaceful they thought it was going to be, how far it was to travel. But her biggest role in a lot of ways was of being a healer with him. And so you're familiar with that too. I'd love to
I
compare
remember that, yeah.
notes on that. And the word Mary actually means healer, which is just perfect. And again, his mother also. So Yeshua's reputation as an incredible healer just grew and grew and grew during his lifetime. And it had gotten to the point where there would be hundreds, if not sometimes thousands of people that had walked for days or carried loved ones for days to be able to get to him. And what Magdalene told me they did was they had Yeshua in a back room, and whatever home they were set up in for him to do the healing, and she was triage, so to speak. Mother Mary did that role at times too. Sometimes it was the three of them, and people would come in and they would be seen first by Magdalene and or Mother Mary. And what most people didn't realize was the healing was actually taking place then, in many cases, but it wasn't acceptable in their times. There was not, women weren't healers. So they would then, the person would then, go into the back, the back room and meet with Yeshua and have that amazing experience, conversation. And it might have been as short as 30 seconds, and a smile from him, a hug from him, just a touching of his hands, because so much of it had already been done, particularly for the women and children, was what Magdalene told me, that more often she was healing just because it was more acceptable and more understood. Because a person has to be open to healing. I mean, you cannot heal someone against their will or if they don't believe it's possible. But
Right.
so much of what Yeshua was doing was he was seeing the person as well and just helping them fill in what was missing.
Yeah. So
So,
my memory is, yeah, thank you, Wendy, is Yeshua was a master of being able to work with the field spirit.
yes.
Yeah. And he was a metaphysical practitioner
Mhm.
and knew how to work with the field. And of course, in back then, that's not what he termed it, but it was something that he knew and remembered. And
Yes.
yeah, and I believe Mary had that knowledge too. And I want to share something we and we now, if there's anyone who would like to ask any questions or chime in, that would be great. I have the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. Okay, and have you read the Gospel of
I
Mary?
have not. I've been asked not to read anything until I finish my own book,
Oh,
just
that's right. Yeah.
influence.
Well, um, what's disheartening is a lot of the pages are missing. So pages 1 through 6 are missing, and 11 through 14 are missing. Now, what does that tell you? And I remember in my memories of the followers and Yeshua and Mary Magdalene hanging out together is that Peter and Mary did not get along too well. And it's interesting in when I read and I just read the her gospel like in the last couple years, I guess, and I was having my memories 20 years ago. And in the gospel, she there's something here I wanted to quote from it. It's in this one where they ask her to share. They say, Peter says, you were his favorite. You were always with him. Let me see here. This is in the Gnostic. Share with us what he told you. Sister, we know the Savior loved you more than any other women. Tell us the words of the Savior that you remember, the things which you know that we don't and which we haven't heard. And she says, I'll tell you what's hidden from you. And when she began telling him, which are missing from the Gospels, he he told her that he didn't believe her, that is not, that he would not share that with her and not us because it's not, the pages are missing. And she got very upset about that. And so I realized, okay, well, no wonder I didn't like Peter. So
Right.
so
And
there were some things in the gospel that in her gospels that went along with what I was feeling from the followers, the relationships with the disciples, which made me feel really good.
Mhm. Well, when we're in human form, we have human emotions. That's just
Right.
a fact of life. So,
I
uh,
do remember them arguing with each other a lot.
mhm,
And, they were young and didn't know how to handle a lot of what they were dealing with and
mhm,
confused and things like that. So that makes sense. But that's most of my memories around that time.
mhm,
And seeing him with children
mhm,
was uh, one of my favorite things to
mhm.
see him with children, around children.
Absolutely. Yeah, he just
Yeah.
so loved, I mean, just the purity and the innocence of children. He was with children as much as he could be, absolutely, and also loved animals. And I remember him distinctly, healing animals. So plants, whatever trees, whatever it was.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Yes, because as you said, knew how to work with that energy field. So things continued and they're living their lives, and they do have a child together. They do have a daughter together. And then things start to go really, really south, and they know what's coming. So they choose to have the Last Supper together. They choose to go pray in the garden, and as the tradition at the time, the men were with Yeshua because men and women had to be separate, and the women were in another part of the garden. And to go through those detailed memories of him being taken, and the beatings, and being imprisoned, and being crucified, it was so hard to go through that, but I needed to. It was what was causing me so much pain.
I needed to too. Yeah, to go through it. That's why he brought me through that as well. There's
Yes.
a lot of us need, he has, sorry to interrupt you, Wendy, but I've noticed in my work that, and you may have too, that a lot of people come to me and maybe you too, to be able to heal that time. Because a
Yes,
lot of us are back that were there and in one form or, we've spread out. And there's a
absolutely.
lot of us in different bodies that carry the
Absolutely.
energy.
And
And
just to be able to release that. And I actually denied for a good year or so, tried to shove it away, push it away, and just like, no, I don't want to deal with the possibility of having been in that lifetime because it's too painful. And as I kept doing that, I was just creating more and more and more and more pain. And finally, because I was being so stubborn, thankfully, different spiritual teachers and healers and others, people I didn't know, and I would be meeting them for the first time, and they would say, it feels like you're going through a really painful past life release. Is there anything I can do to help you with it? And they would name what it was, and they would say, it's as Mary Magdalene. Are you aware of that? And I had 3 or 4 different people do that. And it really helped me step to the plate and realize, well, I can't keep denying this because I'm just going to stay in this incredible pain. And that's why I chose to have this session, because I knew then I'd have a therapist there with me, helping me work through it. And I certainly didn't tell her ahead of time what I thought we might be experiencing, because I always want to have an open mind and heart going into a healing session, and because your higher self, your guides, God, is just going to bring through what's most important for you. But that's exactly where we went. So it ended up being just a mega, mega session, very, very long. And then we took a couple-hour break, and then we did a couple more hours all in one day because she was visiting from out of town. So we chose to do it that way. And that's where all the beautiful information came through too. And to hear Magdalene talking about her greatest joys of being a little sister, being over time becoming a best friend, a wife, a mother, an aunt, to talk about those relationships. She didn't talk a lot about politics. And the therapist, was following the lead of my higher self and of Magdalene as they tag teamed it during the session. So, she asked a little bit about it and just kept getting that not interested, not interested. It's
do you
not.
believe she went to France
Yes.
afterward? Okay.
Yes, that is something that did come up, was after the crucifixion. she had a target on her back, as did Mother Mary, because they were there present at the crucifixion. The decision was made that they were going to be there and help him ascend. And there actually was kind of an argument going on of Magdalene trying to push him up faster and faster and faster, and just, no one wants to, because I believe most crucifixions took about 3 days. It's a very painful suffocation actually that's going on. So she's trying to shove him up, and he's like, I'm taking the sins of the world with me. It's going to take the amount of time it takes. So
Yeah, because
there's
there's
different
like
opinions on it.
different stories, right? I have a book called Jesus Lived in India, and now there's theories that he went there after the crucifixion, after he rose and
Right,
studied the guru there, and
right.
that's interesting.
There's a
And
lot
then
of different theories.
a
I
lot
think
of different theories, yeah.
think each person, you just need to go within. I think
Right.
it's just a
I agree.
respectful, beautiful dialogue to have with yourself.
Mhm.
Just form your own truth, because you will hear theories from A to Z
Right.
of what happened. But
Yeah.
to answer your question, yes, in my memories and timeline, what happened was Mother Mary and Magdalene, who was pregnant with their third child, so second child by Yeshua, and they needed to leave, and they needed to leave quickly. And his uncle, Joseph of Arimathea, had ships and was able to get them out. And it was just like this very, very fast packing of just like a small, what we call a duffel bag now, an overnight bag, and just trying to shove everything that was important to them, mementos, because they knew they weren't likely to be coming back. And she's trying to pack for two children, and
That's interesting. I remember that she had three in my timeline, three natural born children.
oh, and I have not heard that from anyone else. I've heard different numbers. Again, it's just different numbers. One of the funniest things, because in this incredible, tragedy, and like everyone's just like, how do you even function to try and, pack bags and, and get out of Dodge? Um, and she made this split second decision, because of course the children don't really understand what's happening, and they're in shock and they're crying, and she chose to take Yeshua's little cat. He had this little cat called Mary, that he had healed, out in the desert. And yes, Yeshua had a cat. Again, human life. And isn't that like the perfect thing you would take for your children?
Sure.
Their dad's cat. So she manages to get it in one of the bags, and tells the children, don't tell anyone, because they're running for their lives, and they're supposed to be packing food and water and, essential things, and she's taking a cat along.
It's of course the Bible teaches us he didn't have any children and didn't have a wife and things like that. I would think that he would want, oh, okay. Um, that he would want to keep his bloodline on the planet. It would make sense that Mary and Yeshua would want his bloodline on the planet. That would be the only thing that would make sense.
Exactly.
Spread his bloodline on the planet. So the fact that they wouldn't have any children just doesn't make any sense to me.
No,
Or he wouldn't
no.
have, because he was a man. He was on the planet. He came to this planet to have a human experience as well.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah, and so why wouldn't he fall in love? Why wouldn't he want to have that type of a
That
existence?
experience.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and have children and be able to have that legacy, and that way
Mm.
it and
Exactly. The
'cause
full
he
the
knew,
full human experience.
yeah, and he knew what he was sharing. the information and the teachings. I believe he was the greatest teacher on the planet. What he shared on the planet um, would was for now, for this time.
Mhm.
And I do believe that Mary uh, was, and he told me this when I was with when they were sharing with me the memories, that she was equal with him in the teachings. She
Mhm.
understood, and whatever he was remembering, basically, we're always just remembering, right? What he was remembering, and that he would help her with, and what she was remembering, she would help him with, because he
Yes.
told me she helped him a lot. She would help him a lot as well, that he learned a lot from her as well.
Yes.
So it was an equal relationship there. Uh,
Yes.
but
And
she called
Yeshua.
him, she still, and I remember she called him master when I was walking with him through her eyes.
Mhm. Mhm. And I mean, Yeshua was, as you said, just an incredible teacher and healer, but you've got to be at the same vibrational level. They did escape. They went originally up to back to the same temple of Isis at Philae, chose to take them in and to hide them, and they were there for several months, just letting things cool off and letting plans be made for where Mary and her children would settle permanently, because they couldn't stay permanently in a temple of Isis with the children, male child. And they prepared a place for her in France. So yes, it was in southern France. It was by the water. It was a very simple little cottage, and that's where she lived out her life into her 60s, and had those children. Unfortunately, John, her son, became estranged as a teenager, and left, and sadly did not reconcile. But boy, he was carrying quite a load from what he'd been told, and not being Yeshua's son, and his father having so there just was a lot going on, there. But just a very quiet life. I mean, that's what she wanted, and just wanted to raise her children. And then she really wanted to write her story. She wanted to write her book of love. And it wasn't about, oh, I have to get my autobiography done. That's not the thinking at all. It's like, how do I share this powerful story of love? And as I said, what she most cared about was having been a wife and a mother and a daughter and a sister and an aunt, and all the personal human relationships.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. When she was communicating with me, it was all about love, definitely. And walking the planet with people and seeing, and when I was seeing through her eyes, I had so much love for Yeshua. I mean, I still do, of course, through my eyes now. But and I believe that when you work with Mary and any of the masters, of course, that you're merging their energy with yours, and that you see the world through their eyes. Through their eyes, that as you work with them, because you're merging energies. But she had, I mean, I felt, and I knew as I was looking at him and watching him, there was just so much love pouring out of me for him.
Absolutely. It's like your
The heart
it
is
feels
just
like your heart chakra just like bursts open because it's not big enough.
right. I know it's almost painful. There's so much love there, and
I
and
went through a
Mhm.
time period where I was physically having some difficulties, and it was just hurting. And I knew it was energetic, but I was having trouble physically. And Yeshua came into that session and said, I need to actually adjust your collarbone and your thymus gland and just allow you to. And then I was kind of making a joke. It's like I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm like the Grinch." We're in the final scene, the X-ray. His heart just gets bigger and bigger. Oh my goodness.
He did also take me through some painful memories of the crucifixion through uh, his eyes as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I've heard people or listened to people's interviews and things like that where they were also able to went through those painful memories as well as through his eyes for whatever reason they needed to. I mean, mine was just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so we can all tap into those times. And I believe, like I said earlier, I do believe that a lot of the people that were on the planet, or all the people that were on the planet when he walked the planet, or when they walked the planet, are here.
Yes. 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 I, like you, have had the good fortune to meet several dozen of them have come to me as clients, and I have recognized a fair number of people from that timeline.
Right. And not just the followers, but uh, people that, like Roman soldiers have come to me that were
Mm-hmm.
have been reincarnated and are part of that line. And,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Absolutely.
mhm.
Yes, they're an important part of the story. I mean, everyone is.
Right.
So yes, absolutely. And what I'll be sharing in my book, Magdalene's Book of Love, is that week in June of 2014 that I had my incredible mega sessions. I had three other friends have sessions that week too with the same hypnotherapist because she had traveled in from out of town, as I said. And they were all in that same timeline. And again, we went into it and said nothing to the therapist because everyone wanted to keep an open mind and heart. And also, we didn't want to bias each other. So we agreed not to discuss our sessions until everyone had completed them. But the four of us that week, it was Yeshua's youngest sister, Mary. It was his Mother Mary, uh, me as Mary Magdalene, and then one of our children. So our oldest daughter was the middle child. So it was quite a week, and the poor hypnotherapist left going, I don't know what to do with this. It was a big surprise for her. And one of the things that came up that was so wonderful was we all remembered and had differing viewpoints on some beautiful things. Like, I believe that Magdalene and Yeshua were married multiple times just so that different people could celebrate with them.
Mhm.
But the wedding that was the most meaningful to Magdalene was right at home in their large back garden at her family home, and multiple people remembered that. So you've got like the sister's viewpoint on it, you've got like the wife's viewpoint on it, you've got the mother's viewpoint on it, and you've got the little girl's viewpoint on it. And we all were commenting about the others. It just was really, really interesting.
That's awesome. So we've got about 5 minutes left. So
Yeah.
I'd like
Do
to
we have questions or callers or anyone we can help?
I'd like to congratulate Gregory. He won a copy of my book.
Oh,
And yeah,
wonderful.
congratulations, Gregory, if you're
Right.
here.
Really
Yeah.
enjoy it. There's so much in Sharon's book.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'd like to talk about Mary Magdalene's role now with us and I feel that she's here. I mean, she's always here, but she's been here. But now that we're becoming more aware of her energy and her true role with Christ, and I believe that she's, well, we're all Christ within, the feminine Christ that walked the planet, um, healing the divine feminine. Yeah. And I do remember Christ was telling me, Yeshua was telling me 20 years ago that she has been, he felt bad. He felt really bad how over the years, the centuries, that how she had been, her role had been hidden. So, hidden.
Mhm. Yeah.
And the true Mary Magdalene was hidden. His wife, his love, had been hidden and suppressed, who she really was, and maligned.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so she's all of that. And I believe that that's our role, is to help.
I think the veil can be lifted on that, and as
Yes.
each person can do their own work and find
Mhm.
their own truth.
Right. Yeah. And help heal that divine feminine within us.
Mhm.
Bring that out, because I do believe that's why she's
Exactly.
here, and Mother Mary, and Mother Mary
Because
too, to help heal the mother. Mhm.
right, because we all have both masculine and feminine energy in every lifetime, and just getting those
Right.
integrated and just partnered together. I mean, that's how we really, really ascend. That's where everything starts from. You can't be at war with yourself.
No. No, that's the problem, right? Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, because it's all about what's going on within us.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's beautiful, and these times are beautiful, and what he taught 2000 years ago was and he even said it was for the end of an age, or what they taught was for the end of an age, which is now.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's so exciting. It really is. I'm every day I wake up so excited about being in these times and having the opportunity to be here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's wonderful to hear. Yes.
Yeah. So do you have any closing remarks because we have about 2 minutes left, it looks like. Time
Yes.
goes by really fast.
There just was a quote that was accredited to Yeshua that was in the Bible so many times. And the quote is usually truncated, and I think it takes away the meaning. And the quote is, he said, "Let those who have eyes to see, let them see. And for those who have ears to hear, let them hear." And usually it's cut there. And for those who have neither, let them pass on. I just think that's so beautiful, and just so, just so well said. If it's not your cup of tea, well, let it be.
Let it be. Like the song, the Beatles. Yeah,
Just let it be.
let it be. Another thing in Mary Magdalene's gospel is that she called God the good.
Oh.
Yeah, she didn't call God the good.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
wonder if that means anything with what we call God.
I think
If there
of
was
God
some,
as Mother, Father, God, because as I said, everyone's got both the masculine and the feminine, and I don't see God as this, old gentleman in a white nightgown. It's just much more encompassing than that.
right, and beard,
Right, right.
big white
Time.
sitting on a throne. You
Right,
were bad. You were
right.
bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Judgment only comes from us. So learning to be at peace with ourselves and the world around us, I think that's what's just necessary. I think that's where the peace on earth comes from. It comes from us just settling into our hearts and just letting it be, and just reintegrating that divine masculine and feminine beautifully.
Yes. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Wendy.
Well,
I
my
love talking to you. So interesting. And I can't wait for your book to come out. And you have a book out now.
Yes. Yes, I do. I have a new book out now, which is Regression Healing 2. Joe and Marilyn is the most recent one, referring to Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe. So again, very well-known couple
Yes.
with a
Yes.
heck of a lot of twists and turns.
Right. Yes. And I've read Wendy's book. It's awesome. It is really, really cool.
Oh, thank
And
you.
yeah, and my book is Awakened Soul. And this is Awakened Soul Radio. Thank you for being here. Have a great day. I'm Sharon Kumara, and you have been listening to Awakened Soul Radio on Transformation Talk Radio. I invite you to embark on a transformative journey with us. Awakened Soul is a safe, sacred space for exploring the depths of our consciousness. Each episode, you will be inspired to shed the illusions that bind you, connect more deeply with your inner wisdom, and step into a liberating life of freedom, clarity, and purpose. To connect with me, visit kumaraacademy.com.